Good evening, everyone, and thank you, everyone, for your patience with us. We are having a little bit of technical difficulty. And in that technical difficulty, we have also lost one of our hosts tonight, which always makes it a little bit more difficult for us because she is the third part in our trio, and that is Sister Dardisha Pickett. We hope that at some point that she can jump on and join us. But again, thank you guys for your
Amen.
patience and welcome to October's Ladies Takeover of the Prince Hall Think Tank. So tonight I'm going to pass our introductions and get started right away with Sister Hill.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sister Patrice Hill. I currently serve as worthy matron of Carter Success 870A. I'm also past matron of Gamble's Choice number 827, Order of Eastern Star, Mitzvah Grand Chapter, where Sister Shirley Pratt serves as my grand matron and Brother Calvin Miller serves as my grand patron jurisdiction of Alabama.
And I am past matron Alexis Oniscavage of Ionic Chapter number 77, subordinate chapter of Eureka Grand Chapter, Prince Hall, Order Eastern Star, Incorporated State of New York, where Sister Yvonne Ladson serves as my grand worthy matron, and Brother Paul James serves as my grand worthy patron, and my most worshipful Grand Master, Gregory Robeson Smith Jr. Well, let's jump right on into the show tonight. OES and the Colored Women's Movement and Lifting as We Climb. A lot of people don't realize what an impact the Colored Women's Club movement had on have on us today and um, the effects are lasting. So we'll jump right into it. So the National Association for Colored Women's Clubs was officially established in 1896. However, the Colored Women's Club movement started post Civil War as Black women do what we always do, and that's come together to survive. And a lot of the club movements were started very small. They were grassroots movements that helped Black women in a post slavery era gain education, job training, child care, hygiene practices, housing, and things like that. And as we move forward towards the turn of the century, we start talking about the political aspects of Black women's lives. And a lot of these clubs move to a more political spectrum. Some of the colored women's clubs that had established themselves as grassroots were like the Women's Era Club in Boston, New York, which focused on self improvement and they spoke out against violence. The Phyllis Wheatley Club, which in some cases did focus on social reform, but also helped women moving from the South move to the North and establish homes and get jobs and childcare. And then the Colored Women's League in Washington, D.C., which was actually a coalition of 113 grassroots Black women's clubs. And the National Association for Colored Women, once they became a formal establishment, it also became a response to a continuous vicious attack on the character of African American women by a Southern journalist. Combined with the spread of disenfranchisement, lynching, and segregation, and the desire to uplift the race, Black women organized club movements that led to the formation of the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs in 1896. The four women you see on your screen are credited with being the founders: Harriet Tubman, Mary Church Terrell, Ida B. Wells, and Frances E. W. Harper. Mary Church Terrell would serve as the first president of the National Club. And as they formalized the club, the National Association for Colored Women adopted the motto, Lifting as We Climb. Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin set the tone when she announced that Black women have to present a positive image of race to the world. And too long have we been silent under unjust and unholy charges. We cannot expect to have them removed until we disprove them through ourselves. This is a picture, and I love this picture because this is the Phyllis Wheatley Club that was actually established in 1899 by my soulmate, past matron Mary B. Talbert. And this is actually the Phyllis Wheatley Club standing in front of the historic Michigan Street Baptist Church in Buffalo, New York, and Michigan Avenue. And again, some of the objectives for the club begin to go to more of a social economic focus. Suffrage and anti-lynching became a major focus of the clubs as they moved on. Some of the memories of the club and some of the established past presidents: Mary McLeod Bethune, Mary Talbert, and these were different club pictures throughout the late 1890s and early 1900s. One of the things that the Nationals Club Women movement did was some of the projects that they undertook in 1901 at the Pan Am exhibition in Buffalo. One of these colored women's club actually boycotted the entire Pan Am exhibition and stopped the exhibition until they were allowed to develop their own symposium of Black writers and Black artists that they felt was a better depiction of what Black women and Black society was, because it was typical to show very primitive ideas of what we could do, and that's what we did so much more. But one of the main focuses, again, was to improve the lives of impoverished African Americans and to focus on suffragette and the anti-lynching. One of the things that Black women understood is that even though our focus is parallel white women were not interested in introducing race into their fight. And oftentimes we were ignored. They used our help. And something that we see mirrored often today is Black women are usually the push for these movements going forward. We managed to save an entire presidential election last year. And this is what the Colored Women's Club movement did. One of the things, unfortunately, in the late 1930s, the club movement did die down and decline because of social economic movement amongst African Americans. But one of the things we wanted to focus today on is one of the women who was instrumental in the club movement, and that was Sister Rosa Parks.
At this time, I would like to introduce to you one of the pioneers that I would say that she is, as Sister Alexis stated, Sister Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks, named Rosa Louise Macaulay, was born on February the 4th, 1913 in Tuskegee, Alabama. Rosa received her high school diploma in 1934. She met Raymond. He was a local barber at the time in Montgomery, Alabama, and they later married December the 18th, 1932. Mr. Parks was heavily involved in the civil rights movement. He was one of the intricate people who helped raise funds for the Scottsboro case, and he also joined the NAACP. Raymond was also a member of Freemasonry under Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Alabama. Shortly after Rosa became a member of Alonzo Mitchell, chapter number 636, under Mississippi Grand Chapter, PHA jurisdiction of Alabama. Alonzo Mitchell 636 was organized November the 7th, 1945, in which she was also indeed a charter member. Rosa joined the Montgomery, Alabama chapter of NAACP in 1943, where she served as the secretary and she served as a youth leader of that local branch. The Color Women Cubs movement and the NAACP had basically like the same members, so they worked closely towards similar goals. Also, lastly but not least, Rosa Parks was indeed um, she was deeply involved in the movement long before she refused to give up her seat in December 1st, 1955. Lastly but not least, also Rosa Parks was inducted as a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated in 1988.
Are we still blinking? I'm sorry, everyone. Tonight is just a night full of technical difficulties, but we're going to get through it. One of the things that we talk about when we talk about the Colored Women's Club movement, and I mentioned before, is Mary Talbert. Mary Talbert is an extraordinary woman, and some of the things that she did throughout her life um, was an amalgamation of everything that the Colored Women's movement was about. And she actually served as their sixth president from 1916 to 1920. And one of the things that she did was that she was very proud of is that she was elected as a delegate of the International Council of Women in 1920, and she addressed the 666 delegates representing 33 countries about discrimination of African Americans women that about the discrimination that African American women experienced in the United States. She was fluent in four languages, and she traveled as the president of the National Association for Colored Women across the world and talked about anti-lynching. She was a mentor to the founder of the National Association for Colored Women's Clubs, Ida B. Wells. She helped lobby, and she supported Leonidas Dyer, who's actually sponsored the Dyer anti-lynching bill, which of course got defeated, but that would have been one of the first bills introduced in the United States that would hold people responsible on a federal level for lynching, and it would also hold law enforcement accountable for not arresting, reporting, or enforcing the laws of the land, the anti-lynching laws. And as national president, one of her most notable accomplishments is she successfully lobbied and garnered historical landmark status for Frederick Douglass's Cedar Hill property in Washington, D.C., which was his final home. And the NACW actually raised the funds to completely renovate that property along with the historical status. And upon her death, a fund through the NACW was established for the upkeep of that property in DC. And when we talk about the Colored Women's Club movement, people think that there is a singular thing that they do. I think that this organization is the best representation of what Black women are, and that is survivors. We take care of our families, each other. And one of the things that Sister Hill and I discussed earlier is the fact that this was a safety net for each other. Sister Hill, you want to expound on that?
Yes, I believe that the movement was definitely a safety net for us as Black women on many levels. One of the levels, of course, was color. Secondly, was just simply being a woman, being safe from harm from our own kind, from any kind, sexual abuse, mental abuse, And the Color Women Clubs movement was indeed a safety net that served as a home for the abused, for the people who didn't have any type of help, any type of safe haven or anything like that. And they served a great purpose, definitely back then, because what we have today, as far as hotlines, as far as different type of organizations to go to, that did not exist really back then. So the Color Women Clubs movement did serve in multiple capacities when it comes to Black women, because we were ostracized, we were criticized in so many different ways. And with that jewel, as I would like to call it, it really, really, really helped a lot of Black women along the way.
Tech today. When we talk about the connection between OES and the Colored Women's Club movement, one of the things I find is, like you said, a lot of the women were the same women doing the same things. However, because OES had that relationship portion and not everyone at that time could join OES, we still find that there were a lot of women who intersected their lives through different organizations. Um, Again, back to Mary Talbert, she was the first worthy matron of Naomi chapter number 10, but she also established the Phyllis Wheatley Club. And all of those women worked together to um, pay the pension for Harriet Tubman. So those were some of the things that we did, because not only was it about the taking care of one another in the present sense, talking about getting the right to vote, anti-lynching, but to take care of our own and to take care and preserve our history and take care of our elders. Um, so one of the questions that we talked about is the importance of the club movement. Did you want to expound on that?
Well, as I just said earlier, the club movement was just definitely a safe haven. Everybody that had anything to do with the beginning of the club movement, I would say, had some type of incident, some type of experience that um, encouraged them to even come together to create that movement. That's part of the importance of the movement. Secondly, is to reach out to others that has experienced things as well that they didn't know about or they heard about. And when you go through something, when you hear about something, at some point you get tired and you know that you deserve better treatment as a woman, as a Black woman, as a woman, period. And I believe that um, that was the importance of the movement, to stand and take a stand on a lot of issues like anti-lynching, um, just different issues, to take a stand and to let everyone know that they were not going to stand for anything that would degrade them. And I just believe that that's the main purpose of it as such.
Well, as a response to one of our comments in the chat about colored women, because they joined the Colored Women's Club because they were learned in the Order Eastern Star, limited black women then um, limited black women then, and we do now. I don't think that's necessarily a true statement, because the fact of the matter is, one of the reasons for the decline of the colored women's movement is because there became a very elitist um, a better than overall, because these were learned women. Whereas the Order of Eastern Star, it doesn't matter. You can be PhD or domestic
Or a janitor.
or janitor. There's no difference in who you should be. Membership crossed everything. And the same women that were in these colored women were in the Order Eastern Star. The only thing that changed was their relationship to a master mate.
Pretty
So
much.
I don't think it's necessarily about the Eastern Star limiting women in the colored women's club movement, giving them more momentum. I think every colored women's club, depending on where you were, dealt with a different focus. And so you had women's clubs that focused more on the poverty of the women in their area. You had women's club that focused on veterans affairs. You had women's clubs that focused on the lynching portion. You had some that focused on suffrage. So I think everybody found a different purpose. I don't think it was necessarily about limiting us as Black women, because the only we are not limited by any means. And I can speak as a member. I don't feel limited, and I feel like a lot of the women that were members of the Order Eastern Star were part of this movement in general. So I don't think it's necessarily about limiting what we could do as Black women. And as a matter of, and I can almost say this, as an Eastern Star, sometimes I feel like we've carried on the lineage of the colored women's club movement a little bit better, because some of us are still in existence and we are still operational and functioning every day, where some of these clubs, once you hit the plateau of middle class Black, those clubs became no longer needed, or they were thought to be no longer needed. We've hit a place
Um,
in society where we've hit a certain plateau, we've achieved a certain level of inclusiveness in society. So those clubs are no longer in existence, but the Eastern Star is.
well, let me expound on that, Sister Alexis. As a member, if you were to compare Order of Eastern Star and the Color Women Club movement, you would see similarities. Like, they weren't boisterous in appearance or in just letting you know, yes, we are the Colored Women Clubs movement. They did their movement through the work. You saw movement through their work, and Order of Eastern Star works the same. You don't see us move as in loud, boisterous, making a scene, or wanting to be seen, so to speak. And mind you, you had the same people in both. So these women back in those days, they were pretty much about the work. They didn't care about being seen. They cared about you seeing the work. They cared about their voice being heard by, okay, this law was passed. They wanted you to hear them through this person, this sister's, this Black woman's case was justified. It was handled in the courts. Those, that's how they wanted to be heard, to be known, not by anything else, not to be prestigious, to be seen in that type of manner. They didn't care about that. They wanted to be seen through work. And that's what I wanted to expound on.
I think also too, when we talk about the movement versus the Order Eastern Star, the Order was one of the first formalized movements among colored women. And that's just historical fact. And I think one of those things, again, yes, we are limited because of our relationship and our covering of a Master Mason. So, no, not everybody could join. However, if you look, a lot of those it didn't matter what it was. Those same issues that we talk about today are the same. We're coming full circle with the same issues, voting rights. That's something. Healthcare, women's healthcare, and again, I think we go back to the parallel of both organizations, and the fact is, Black women being that support and being that safety net. So I'm just scrolling through some of the questions. Sister Hill, would you like to address some of the questions in the chat?
Um, give me one of the questions, and now give me one of the questions. Okay.
Can you say it?
Yeah, I said, are you in the belief of the conference of grand chapters attempting to mimic the platform of colored women? Not necessarily. Not necessarily, because Order Visa Star has its own agenda. We have our own agenda. No, I don't necessarily think they mimic, should I say. I wouldn't necessarily say that. Would I say that they wanted to do work? Yeah, but mimic necessarily? Nah, I personally wouldn't say that.
And because so many of the same women were involved in both organizations, I don't think that mimic would be the right word.
Right.
Dave, can we have the next question, please? Do they care about the work as much now? Do you think? I think that we care about it in a different way. I think the formalized colored women's clubs are just not there, because I think once we achieved a certain level in society, we may not necessarily have felt the need for them. And I do think that it's disheartening, because though we do need that type of support, and we are facing the same challenges in 2022 that those women were facing in 1896. And people don't tend to think that it's the same way, but we talk about the sexual assault of Black women by white men in that era, that it was used. But guess what? We're talking about Black women and women of color going missing in sex trafficking. It's the same thing. We talk about the loss of rights to vote. And yes, again, I will always say this: what happened in 2020? It took Black women to mobilize throughout this country to shift an entire election. So I don't necessarily think we've lost it. I think that we should formalize more than we have, and you do see a lot of people starting to do that. Are starting to do that now. The next question. Our tech in the back is doing some work for us while we're going in and out. Patrice, that's your favorite question.
I just read it. Well, how did it come about in general? Well, OES was truly created for the women of the United States of America, I believe, and it has been written in such Um, Robert Morris, real name Robert Williams Peckham, he got a hold to a ritual that was from France. And he had help from people like Albert Pike to translate it to great old English and bring the adoptive masonry over to America, but of course named it to Order of Eastern Star. Well, the men weren't that thrilled about it. Um, at first, the Freemasons wasn't that too thrilled about it. I'm just gonna keep it real. And but Robert Morris, he started to with the help of Albert Pike, they convinced um, the brothers that there is a good purpose, a good need for the women to be attached to them in such a manner. So, in short, that's pretty much how OES was formed in America. But I can go into deeper, but we'll be on here all night.
What are the lessons that OES can learn from the demise of the clubs, and how can we ensure we don't suffer from the same problems? Oh Lord.
Ooh, I think I got some. I think I got some. Um, upkeeping, upkeeping, upkeeping. Your chapter, upkeeping records, upkeeping teaching, uh, teaching inside your chapters uh, with your officers. And uh, to sum it up, just upkeep, 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 upkeep. Do not let the dream die. Do not let your purpose die.
I think one of the things that we can certainly learn, eh, and it's always and something we always talk about when we're gabbing away, is leadership. When you don't have appropriate leadership, things happen. Um, Leadership can make or break an organization. And when people don't feel, you have to continuously remind people of your purpose, because if you don't feel like you have a purpose, there's no need for you to continue to do what you're doing. Um, and one of the things that we can learn from the demise of, the colored women's associations is, like you said, upkeep. I'm a firm believer that if we don't do what is right and proper inside the four walls in which we practice masonry or the ritual of the Order Eastern Star, then it doesn't matter what we do on the outside, because that ritual is clearly what makes me that, and the fact that I'm related to a master mason is what gives me the ability to be a member of this organization. So if I don't do it right within those four walls, it doesn't matter what I do on the outside, because it's not keeping with the purpose of the organization. Also, I think that, like I said, we're seeing things come full circle. The issues that we thought we had gotten away from, and we got very comfortable in a place in society where we thought we've attained, we've gotten to a certain point, is to realize that it will always be a fight as African Americans in this country. And so some of those social and civic things that we talk about, we need to bring them back into the order. We need to focus on those. And I'll be the first one to say it, a little less on the social portion of the order and a little bit more on the ritual and a little bit more on the civic portion of the order. Because if you look at the some of the most important people in masonry and you look at some of the most important people in the order, what were they fighting for? What were they talking about? The same things that are affecting us now. And those were the leaders of Black America. Um, and that's where they pulled from. Dave, the next question.
Oh God. Improve membership. Well, first and foremost, what's gonna be the deciding factor on membership is because of how OES is set up. I like to tell people all the time OES is strict. It's not free. And what I mean by free is it's not you can wear what you want to wear, you can do what you want to do, you can be what you want to be, you can just be free, 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 free. OES is nowhere near like that. Time you come in the door, you're told, hey, we got rules. Hey, we do this, hey, we do that. So when it comes to membership, that's going to be a real big deciding factor on the caliber of people you have. I'll say it that way. Secondly, how we can improve membership. Stop trying to be seen and just do work and do the work which and where your chapter is. Be seen in that way. Just do work. Do
um,
work. And that will draw the right people, as I would like to say.
and one of the things that when the ladies take over, and a couple of times that we've talked about it, part of the growing of the membership is understanding where the membership comes from. Some jurisdictions have opened up edicts where we allow women that are not affiliated. I'm not against that. However, I also look at where our membership should be coming from. Our membership should be coming from Master Masons. We are the wives, the daughters, the granddaughters, the sisters, the mothers of Master Masons. And the fact of the matter is, when you have ties to one another like that, you tend to feel more responsible for each other. And one of the things that the club movement did, and the women in the club movement, we understood that yes, we had to fight for ourselves, but we also had to fight for our families. We also had to fight for our men. We had to fight for our children. So I think when we can get back to what the membership is supposed to be, and then from there, focusing more on the ritual, how we're supposed to improve ourselves as women. And then we also use that to become civically engaged. We can keep our membership because a lot of times we get lost in the we need money. So we fundraise, we fundraise, we fundraise, and it becomes a party about a party about a party. Let's throw some community service in there. I think if we kind of look back at what our community needs, um, and be more consistent. We need consistency everywhere. So I think that's an important part of growing and keeping that membership. Is there recruitment on college campuses like other D9s? I'm not affiliated, so I'm asking to ensure it's people from the community. Okay. Um, I'm gonna give you my answer and then I'll let Sister Hill take that. I was taught we don't recruit. There's no need for anybody to recruit a Eastern Star because again, our membership is based on that of a Master Mason. So without putting the blame fully on Master Masons, but this is a family organization because based on our membership. So no, we're not supposed to be recruiting. Um, I in the jurisdiction of New York, we do not recruit on college campuses. We don't recruit anywhere. Um, Sister Hill.
Well, basically, you just said it. We don't recruit. One of my mentors and I was talking about this not too long ago, and said recruiting is just simply not our way of doing. Um, you you should show who you are in OES by what you do daily. What are you doing as far as in your chapter is concerned? Are you working? Um, are y'all working as a whole? Things of that nature. And be seen, like I said, be seen in that manner. And that should recruit the right people. Notice I said the right people, not anybody, but the right people. Because if you really understand how the Order of Beast and Star is set up, it's not set up for anybody that just don't have a sense of discipline. You got to have a sense, a good sense of discipline. Otherwise, it's not, in my opinion, it's not a good fit. It's, oh yes, it's not a good fit for everybody. Nothing against other people and how they choose to live. It's just not a good fit because people are going to want to do and be who they are instead of taking moral turpitude and going by that. So that's just my personal opinion on that.
Next question. Um, I don't necessarily think that the legacy issue hurts the membership simply because we're not gaining the membership how we should. So most of our membership, and honestly, I'm at the point where legacy or not, I don't believe that this organization is meant to be a huge organization. It is not meant to be 100,000 strong because we are supposed to be um, people who are striving to be better, but we should have the best of the best. And with that, whether you be legacy or not. And honestly, the sheer magnitude of people that we bring in just doesn't match the quality of people that we need. Because if you cannot tell me that chapters are bringing in 30 and 40 people and that all of them are qualified to be there and that all of them should be there. We're bringing people in just to bring in numbers. And I think with any organization that is supposed to have a purpose, you are supposed to look at your members and look at them to be a quality people.
Well, I'll say this much. On the flip side, you have people that have been in the order for all their life and their children watch them grow into the order and they don't want to be a part of it because all of their life they had to sit outside of the meetings. All of their life they did the junior courts of different houses for like OES, Heritage Jericho, depending upon your jurisdiction and what it have. Um, they tired. So they either they get in early and get out, or they just don't want to join at all.
And
Um, so that's why I'm not against the bloodline being open in different jurisdictions because good doesn't necessarily mean it comes out of your home. Good can come from somewhere else too. It
And
can.
also,
So
when you talk about kids, though, one of the things is we made it such a secret that I know my god sister don't want anything to do with us, and it's not because she wouldn't do she wouldn't do well. It's because of how we treat it. You know, we go to chapter meeting, and instead of being focused on what we should be, what do? We get on the phone and be like, "Girl, let me tell you what such and such said and why they did this, and I can't believe they did that." So it's also how we treat our own organization and how our family sees it. Um,
mm,
you know, a good friend of mine, his father was a past master and a very active past master. His mother was in the order. He doesn't want anything to do with it because it was such a secret in his family that he felt like he had all these uncles and these aunts growing up, but as soon as his parents, died, he no longer had that support. And he's like, well, for my formative years, you took my father from me, but you're not here to support me now. So again, it's also how we treat the organization within our own households.
Gotcha. You're right.
Next question, Dave.
Um, if everybody worked, it would live. If everybody continued to be what they are today, it'll die. I'm just a little raw with it. I'm sorry if I offended anybody, but if
I,
everybody worked, and I'm including when I say this, I'm not saying this to sound arrogant or anything like that. I'm including myself too, because Patrice get lazy at times too. Let's just keep it real. Patrice get a little lazy sometimes too. However, uh, if everybody worked, it will continue to thrive. If everybody continue to do what they're doing now, it'll die. It'll die, Sister Alexis.
this is such a loaded question for me. Um, because I am of the belief that right now we are only surviving, not thriving. Um, and to be honest, is very sad, which is why I do the things that I do within my organization. Um, and it's not always as well received, but I don't see the brightest of futures for us because we have become a social club and we are not here to do what we are supposed to do. And again, like Patrice said, it goes for me too. You know, sometimes I have to eat my own words and look in the mirror and say, what is it that I can do better? Um, and I think some of that is part of when we talk about the decline of the women's club movement is what is it that we're here to do? And sometimes that means you have to stop and pause and figure out what your purpose is because your purpose can change. Um, and I think that if we don't reevaluate what our purpose is and we don't fix the foundation and we don't earnestly work towards being on one accord, that we will see our demise sooner than later. And let me say this, one of the things that I strive to get people to understand is two things can be true at one time, and you can disagree without being disagreeable. And I think sometimes that works against, because people disagree, it tends to work against us. And so you get people that leave and you get people that don't want to stay. And let's be honest, we also have to be honest with ourselves and say, what are we doing to hurt our organization? What are we doing to help it? What advice or wise counsel to a
Oh,
master
can I do this one real quick?
Yes, ma'am, because I know this is yours.
Uh, First and foremost, I'm gonna keep it clean because I don't want to be too rough. But keep your peen in your pants. First and foremost, because that's not the purpose when you come to OES. Secondly, come with the spirit of being helpful and knowing your constitution as a master mason in your jurisdiction. So when you come to our side, you learn our constitution and how that runs, and then you'll be good as just a member. But if you're talking about like being a patron or something like that, you would definitely need to know the constitution. Definitely. But
Um,
just come with a willing spirit to help us as sisters, and yeah, you'll be good off.
and one of the other things that with things that are going on around us is understand that women are in a much different place than we were 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And like you said, come with that willing spirit, but also to understand that you are there to be the covering and you are there to protect and sometimes guide, but not to take over. Um, I used to laugh because I used to be one of them past matrons that was tell the worthy patron, now you know your only job is to open up and shut up. But that's not I don't necessarily feel like that anymore. If you are a master mason and you are skeptical about coming in, I think that you should talk to some of your seasoned matrons and patrons and find out where your talent can best be used so that when you come in, you're not just given this responsibility um, and that you can be there to help. So we're going to take a few more questions and then wrap up. Dave, you want to throw the next one up? The numbers. So that's my classmate over here asking these questions who I love dearly. I'm not saying um, that we cannot pull from our community. I don't care what state or shape our community is, I will always love it and it will always be magnificent to me. However, I do think that we have to better look at the quality of people, and that's just being honest, that we bring into the order. And if we are to be the leaders, whether it be through a colored women's club that's not affiliated to any, membership requirement, or that it be to the order, that we are supposed to be the leaders in our community. And if we can't lead each other inside the organization, how are we supposed to be a beacon of light to our community? And let's be honest, we don't always use people's talents like we should. Um,
Amen.
it's our fault. Like I tell people all the time.
Intimidation, intimidated by
And it's
somebody else's talent
right.
instead
And
of embracing people.
I
Mm.
laugh all the time because it's some of the work I'm doing in the organization. Don't ever ask me to be a graphic designer because it's gonna be messed up. Now you want me to write something, that's my strength. Let me use that and let me do that. But then it also is about the individual. Are we taking on more than we can handle? Are we moving too fast and not learning what we need to learn so that we can be effective leaders and members? Because one of my biggest things is, in order to be an effective leader, you have to be an effective member first. Because you can't lead people if you don't know where they are. So I think that's really important. But again, it's to me, it's more about quality versus quantity. I'm not against open bloodlines. Let me say that. However, it's about, are we doing our due diligence with the people that we bring in? When we do an investigation, are we really investigating that person? Are we talking about what their talents are? Are we talking about how we can be a benefit to them just as they should be a benefit to us? So we'll take the last question. Dave, it's up to you.
One more, one more, one more, one more.
Dave.
And that is Dave. All right, Dave. Thank you. Back
um,
to you, Alexis.
I just want to thank everybody for jumping on tonight. We are missing a big, big portion of our
Oh
show.
my God. Yes,
Um,
we are.
and so we
Our
thank you for rolling
Darnisha.
with us. Um, we thank you for rolling with us tonight and giving us those
Amen.
questions. Um, and I will say this as we circle back around to the Colored Women's Club movement and the Eastern Star. At the end of the day, um, Prince Hall Eastern Stardom is a representation of Black women. Since its inception, since the world's inception, Black women, and I will always say this because I am, we have been the backbone of societies, of our families, of civilizations. And as we talk about it, everybody has their purpose. The Colored Women's Club, they use those grassroots movements to fulfill the purposes in their communities. And I just ask that as we talk about it and as we, come up on election season, that we use the resources that we have to reorganize ourselves or sometimes just to reevaluate ourselves in whatever organization we be in, whether it be OES or whether it be one of those grassroots organizations, and figure out what the purpose is and work towards that purpose. And I think the betterment of our people is always at our forefront. So I'll give you the last words, Sister Hill, to take us out. Well, I think Sister Hill is frozen. So I will ask that everyone, thank you everyone again for joining us tonight. And we hope you enjoyed ourselves. And remember that election day is coming up. Go out and vote. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.